So the first thing we want to do is we want to set a time target. We want to set up a goal for how fast do we want to run Nightmare Dungeons. So one of the early benchmarks that really set for me was getting that 5 to 6 minutes. If I can get in that range, then I can significantly increase the number of Nightmare Dungeons. You know, if I'm going from 15 to 5, I can run 3 times the amount of Nightmare Dungeons for the same amount of time I spend playing. That is crucial for feeling that you're moving massively through the game and really enjoying it. So set that target, whatever it is for you, and then keep working to bring it down. Because if you can take another minute off, well, that dramatically increases the speed at which you move. So this is going to be our target. No matter what other tip that we look at from this point forward, we're going to be running against this. How does it affect my runtime? So on the lower end, you can actually expect to get down almost to 3 to 4 minutes to get really good at a lot of the stuff that we're doing here. It takes a little practice, but once you get it, then you can just zip through these and be moving significantly faster to that level 100. So tip number 2 is we're going to want to set the minimum sigil level. So when you're going through and you're running Nightmare Dungeons, as many of us know, we have our consumables here, all of our sigils. We want to kind of figure out what is a good level for experience. And from a lot of what the community has tested so far, it seems to be if you take your level, so I'm here 86 and I subtract 53. So that would be 33 for me. That gives me my ideal sigil level. So if you see here, or at least my first jump where I have a good set of experience. So like a lot of these, I'm actually running past this and I'll explain that in a second. But so if you just take that, look at your level, subtract that, you'll know that you should be doing that level of sigil or above. Anything below that you can kind of get rid of. Now, again, if we go back to our first thing and we're looking at the 6-minute marker, and by doing so, like staying at that level 3, you're not getting that time down, I would make a concession, but I really would be looking at, well, what do I have to change in my build? What do I have to design differently here so that I can finally get to the level of sigil that I want, at least the minimum? So what happens then is like, we want to know what's our max. Is there a benefit for going up? And originally in Diablo 4, there was not a benefit. You kind of got to 3 and they held the experience level at that. Now, how do I pick the upper end? Well, you're going to want to basically hold the time first. So if I'm running a 6-minute Nightmare Dungeon and I try to increase the level and it goes to a 7 or 8 minute, that's not worth it. The difference in experience is not worth the time gain. So what I still want to do is I still want to aim on, it's more important that I bring my 6 minutes, because that's where I'm at, that I figure out how to keep bringing that down to 5 minutes than it is to jump the level of for the experience. That'll allow you to clear it. That'll allow you to get some of the mechanics that are kind of challenging at times, or you can just get better at speeding up through the things. So on the higher end, you want to maintain whatever the level. Like, let's say that you are consistently running a 5 minute and you can keep notching up that level and going higher and higher sigil. So the monsters are higher and higher level, but you don't affect your time, then do it. That is perfect. That's exactly what we want to see. But as soon as you see that to start creep, you add another minute, you add another 30 seconds, it might be time to switch out of that and just hold the level where you're at until you can figure out some things you want to change in your build or get more of those Paragon points and spec them outright. So now we are on to tip number 4. And this is where we start getting ready just before our run. These are the things that we're going to want to make sure are in place before we start doing a series of Nightmare Dungeons. And it starts with the very first thing is that we want to have a stash tab open. The time you spend in town counts to your run. So if you're doing a 6-minute run in the Nightmare Dungeon and then you're spending 5 minutes in town, that's an 11-minute run. And so we really do want to look at the total time, because that is what's going to make you feel like either you're moving quickly into Endgame and getting those levels fast and keeping excited and motivated, or getting really burnt out. And so the first thing I want to do is I just want to set up a stash tab that is completely open. So that's all it takes. Just make sure that you clear the space, because when I come out of a run, or when I'm finally have my bag full, which isn't going to be every run, I'm going to then be able to come in here and drop it off. I will sort it after I'm done. I'm going to commit to a certain number of Nightmare Dungeons. We'll talk about that in a second. But I'm going to do that, and then I'm just going to drop the things off here and be done. Now, the second thing we can do, and this might not be easy to do right away, but it's something to start targeting, is having movement speed on your boots and having movement speed potentially on your amulet. These are the two places where you can roll a good movement speed, and you want to if you can. So boots, I think, is required for almost all builds in Endgame. If you aren't currently rocking boots that actually have a movement speed increase, you're going to want to get on that sooner than later. And then if you still need more time, if you're one of the slower characters, then definitely speed up with getting that movement speed also on your amulet. Okay, so we are now on to tip 6, which is affix this. Affixes is one of the first things that I started changing about how I ran Nightmare Dungeons. Affixes are these punishing things that are down, like come up when you pick up a sigil. So like the Avenger, that green one is a benefit, but everything below that is some sort of thing that's actually going to hurt your run. Now, certain affixes are fine. They don't cause any issues. They don't slow you down, but other ones massively decrease your ability to complete or not die, or, you know, many other things that are going on. So you shouldn't be doing every affix. That is just, that's nuts. By getting rid of some of the ones that slow me down, I was able to enjoy the game more. I was able to enjoy my runs and definitely get a lot of time consistently off. So this is the first edit I will make. You do not want to do every sigil. It's not just because you have the sigil, you should do it. That's, you know, you can make that a challenge if you want, but when you're speed running through Nightmare Dungeons, you do not want to play that game. I literally come through here and I look for the affixes that I actually want to do or don't do. These actually all look good. They don't have any of the ones that I would actually give a crap about. So I'll have to actually mention some of the ones since none of these have it. I guess I've already done this. Death Pulse. Okay, this is a good one. So Death Pulse for the Barbarian is really rough because as I'm spinning through mass of mob of people, of monster, I'm trying to kill them and I'm in the middle. So as I kill things, the Death Pulse releases a deadly pulse that stabs me. So if I just killed 30 guys, this leaves a very challenging thing. If I get CC'd at all, I'm dead. If one of my things drop, one of my shouts or something drops just at the wrong time, this could kill me. And so I'd rather not run back from what seems to be the very beginning of the map. I know that's not exactly what they're doing, but it seems like we've had to run a lot farther than we've ever had to before. And that keeps getting worse. The other one that I will mention is Lightning Storm. This is horrible. So what do you do with these sigils? If they have these horrible things on them, what are you going to do with them? Just destroy them for parts. Because if you go to the occultist and you break these down, you get the parts to make new sigils. So you don't have to worry about that. So just break these down. Any affixes that are bad for your class or dramatically slows you down, has you like the Lightning Storm where you're running back to that stupid bubble to make sure that you don't die. It's such a horrible experience. I do not enjoy it. So I'd rather be focusing on moving through the mobs, killing them as fast as possible, and really just kind of dialing in, blitzing through the Nightmare Dungeon rather than running back to a stupid bubble. So I don't do these. I will break this down and I will use the parts to make better sigils. Now, the next thing that follows up with that, it's not just the affixes. This is the first line. I will destroy affixes and do maps I don't like before I delete the maps. So if I'm running low on maps and I've destroyed all these affixes that I don't like to do and I only have a few left of maps that I don't really prefer, I'd rather do those than do the stupid affixes. So the next thing is to pick maps you like. If you have been running these and you start to realize that there's certain maps you really enjoy that you kind of blitz through. They feel very natural for your build. They're just good. And those always feel great. And then there's other ones that feel horrible. You can break down those. Don't feel like you have to do every sigil that's in here. So breaking down maps you don't like. Now, if you're just starting out and you don't really have a feel for that, there is a really good way, because the priority here is to decrease the time for a Nightmare Dungeon and increase the experience that you get for that. So the very next tip, I'm actually going to jump over to maxroll.gg. So we are here on maxroll.gg, and I just want to quickly show you what you can do. If you're not sure what maps, then you can actually use what these guys have already done. They've done a ton of work testing all of the maps for exactly what we're looking for. What is going to give us the best experience? What's some of the better runs for actually leveling? And so if you come in here, we click on Diablo 4. There we are. I was already there. Then we click on tier list right here. And at the bottom of the tier list right here is Nightmare Dungeon tier list based on solo XP, farming, and glyph leveling. So when we come in here, they have tested all of the maps, and they do repeatedly as things change in the game. So these are generally up to date. We're going to want to come in here and we're just going to want to look at the S tier and A tier and possibly B tier. If we're having issues with just keeping enough sigils to keep running Nightmare Dungeons, then that might be an issue. But for the most part right now, I'm getting enough drops in the dungeons that I can just grab the S tier and A tier list. And then I write down all of these. I just write them on a piece of paper at my desk side so I don't have to jump over to the site every time I want to check it, because I really want to be in running Nightmare Dungeons. So I'll write this down and I'll stick it on a stick-it or just some piece of paper that's on my desk. And that allows me to then look at the sigils and decide which ones I'm going to break down. If they are too low on this list, if they are way low on the tier list, I'm not going to do them. I don't find it worth it. So I'm just going to skip them and move on. This will speed up my time in leveling significantly, and I don't have to go do all the tests. Obviously, if you find that this list is a little different for you when you actually play or for your build, make those modifications. Maybe you'll take some off the list, cross them out, or decide to make your own list. But that is something that you can definitely do, and this will speed up your gameplay significantly. So we are now on to tip number 9, and that is pick your poison. So choosing our poison basically is picking the sigil levels that we want and maps that we want to do. So we've already gone through how to sort those. So if you've gone through the last few tips, you've already broken down the ones you don't want, and they shouldn't even be in your bag. So then you're just kind of grabbing a few that you want to run. I kind of aim this towards how long my elixir is going to run. So the elixir, no matter what, when you're playing in or out of seasons, is going to run about 30 minutes, right? So if you're running a 6-minute dungeon, you want to have probably 5 sigils down here. And so that'll just give you, when the new sigils that you pick up along the way come into the bag here, they're just going to fill these spots up here. If you just did the sigil from here and didn't put them down here, that's just going to have another sigil fill the spot. And you're not going to remember if you have to, like, which ones were the good ones again, because now you have to resort those. And those haven't been decided for getting rid of affixes you don't want to do. They haven't been looked at for maps that you want to do. So those could be ones that are actually very very costly and you want to do. So having them all lined out, this is what I'm going to run as long as my elixir is running, and we'll get into elixirs in a second. But as long as that's happening, that's going to help us a ton. Now, the next thing we want to do, and tip number 10, is that we are going to want to choose our glyph. So at the end of every nightmare dungeon, you get to rank up your glyph. Now, if we go into abilities and we go into our paragon points, we kind of want to look at this. These are all our glyphs down here. We want to kind of have the glyphs chosen already. So right here, I've got level 15, level 15, level 15, level 13. Okay. So this one, this red circle around is telling me it's equipped, and it is not level 15. So the first goal in choosing the glyph is to make sure that you're getting all of them to 15, so you get that extra radius. So when they're at 15, they spread out and they can hit more nodules, thus affecting whatever benefit they have for, dexterity in the range or intelligence or whatever effect that it's trying to affect. This will dramatically do it. So you want to get all the glyphs you're using to level 15 as soon as possible. So just choose one. Don't kind of rank them all. Don't put a little bit in each one. Just choose one that makes the most sense for you. And then at the end of the nightmare dungeon, instead of making more decisions, you're just picking the sigil that you already chose and you're loading all the experience into it until it gets to 15. At 15, then you switch to the next one, hopefully one that's equipped or one you're planning on using when you have the next slot available. So that way you are just kind of getting quickly to the biggest benefit for these is first level 15. Don't take them all the way to 21, and don't do that little piecemeal thing where you're giving little bits at a time. So we are now on to tip 11, and that is always be drinking. And that is basically having an elixir always running. The experience gained from the elixir, that 5%, does add up over time. The amount of nightmare dungeons we're doing, the amount of time it takes to get to level 100, it's going to add up for you. And even if your goal isn't 100, if you're trying to just get deep into endgame, leveling it faster has a significant benefit. So we want to make sure that we're always running some sort of elixir. Now, it doesn't really matter what the effects are. A lot of people are focused on it. Most of the effects don't do much. Like if you're doing the magic, or you're doing like the resistances, or you're doing more damage, it doesn't seem to add up for the time it takes to go, oh, what map am I running? What monsters in there? It doesn't really make a difference. So I at least have some sort of weak elixir because I'm just really looking for the 5% experience. Now, in this game, I've seen a lot of people like save up their elixirs like they're going to be valuable later. I even made that mistake. It doesn't get better. The elixirs become less valuable as you go. So if you're in early game and you're not using elixirs, you're just costing yourself more time. So start using elixirs right away. Always have those running when you're going to go fight a bunch of monsters. Now, if you're going to spend a lot of time in town, yeah, it doesn't really matter. You're not going to gain unless you're dropping off quests, because that also gives the 5% boost. So you want to basically have these running all the time. Now that brings me to tip number 12, and that is choosing the right elixir for your needs. If you look at it, all the elixirs do something, but what we're really targeting in nightmare dungeons is to decrease that time and increase that experience. So if you are having trouble keeping that, let's say the 6-minute mark for your runs, and you are dying a lot, and that's what's causing it, you're having to run back from almost the beginning of the map and run through again, and that's annoying as hell, then you're going to want to look for things that are going to give you more defense. So my favorite is Iron Skin. If you have these I think these you cannot make. You have to pick them up as you go so that you can run out of them. So, but Iron Skin is going to give you 900 more armor. Now, there is a good alternative. Let's go over here to my stash and I'll just show you. If you've run out of Iron Skin or you used them all, the next best thing is Iron Barb. These you can build. So this is what I would do. If I have one of these, I'm just going to pop that if I'm dying a lot and see if I can get my time. That's why we're having that time marker, because this might make that effect. Maybe you can get a minute and a half off by simply having the armor just to bolt through things, because you're killing things plenty fast. Now, if your other issue is that you're not dying, but you're just not clearing the mobs fast enough, my favorite elixir for that is going to be the elixir of cruelty. And this just has a heightened chance of critical strike. So you're just going to clear faster because you're going to be hitting those critical strikes and just killing everything a lot faster than you are. So I would target these two depending on the problem that I'm facing. So that's going to bring us to probably one of the most important parts of this. And that's where the rubber hits the road. And that's when we're actually in Nightmare Dungeons. So the very first thing is to pick up almost nothing. Tip 13, pick up almost nothing. And that's important to understand because this is hard for a lot of ARPG players where you just have this obsession to like grab everything and it freaks you out that there's something you didn't pick up. Because what if that's what you need? When we're running Nightmare Dungeons for leveling, when we're trying to keep that speed up, it's not just picking up the item, the time that takes to do that, but it's also filling up our bags more often. It's having to sort through more things, filling up our stash more often, filling up our bag. It just creates a lot of problems where you're just constantly starting and stalling. So if we can get to it where we're not picking up everything, because honestly, it's usually like one item in 1,000 things you're going to look through if you're picking up all the yellows. If you're picking up every rare, every ancestral, even if it's just every ancestral rare, if you're picking up all of them, it's 1 in 1,000 chance you're even going to get that. But the cost to you for filtering through all those things, through sorting through them, is going to cost you the momentum that gets you to actually get through endgame, to get to those later levels. It's going to affect your ability to have your build be stronger because you're not getting your Paragon points, as quickly. You're slowly getting points because you're spending almost as much time in town as you are spending in the dungeons. And that's just going to eat it up. So what we want to do is we want to leave most things on the ground. What do we pick up? Well, we're going to pick up uniques. We're going to pick up legendaries. We're going to pick up sigils, and we're going to pick up elixirs because these are all the things we generally need. The legendaries we still might need. We want to get those good rolls on the aspects. The uniques, they drop so rarely that some of them are extremely rare that just having them makes a difference, at least to your psyche. If you do want to leave those on the ground, they're just going to end up in your stash anyway. But I would, at the very least, even for my well-being, I would at least pick up the uniques just in case I get one of the ultra rares or something I need right now. I'll pick up the uniques, but I will even leave the legendaries on the ground. So now on to probably one of the most impactful things you can do in dungeon, and that it does take a little bit of skill, but once you get it, it changes everything. And you can see in the gameplay, if you notice, I'm doing something a little bit different. I'm not just going and killing a mob and then clearing it. This is called kiting. Kiting is king, is tip number 14. And so what happens is basically you're pissing off a mob and you're running to another mob before you hit all your skills. So that way you're not waiting for the cooldown times between or going to fight the next mob when all of your cooldowns are still on, are down. So that way you are actually possibly decreasing the amount of time you spend in half. It's nuts. And you can even do this 2 or 3. You can piss off a mob, piss off another mob, and then go to the third. If you're just starting out, get good at just bringing one to the other and killing it. But as you get better and your build can handle it, then taking 3 or even 4. Now, there is one caveat. If you're doing one of those areas where you have to clear all of the enemies, do 1 or 2, maybe 3 max. That way you can easily see if you left something behind. So you're not going to the end of the map and then running all the way back through the dungeon to find that one little guy that got hid in a corner, because that sucks too. That eats up a ton of time. So if you're doing this right, it feels really great. It's kind of a different level of challenge. You're kind of moving through a lot of things. The speed of it feels really great, but you can take down the time in Nightmare Dungeons. This is how people are getting to that 3 to 4 minute Nightmare Dungeon, is they're really clearing it. Now, another thing is to note is don't worry about clearing every single individual monster. If they're elites, they're going to chase you for quite some time. If they're the little guys, they don't really matter. The experience that they give you is not worth it. So unless it's an all clear, just be okay. Hit all your skills, crush as many things as you can, and then move on. Kite the next group, to the other group, and then all your cooldowns are back on, and do it again. And so you can see in the gameplay just like how much faster this is than going one little mob and then killing it, then running to the next mob. So this will dramatically decrease the amount of time you are spending in each dungeon and still maximizing the amount of experience that you're getting. So that will now bring us to tip number 15. Tip 15 is that the town is lava. No matter what ARPG you play, this is a pretty consistent thing to follow. The more time you spend in town is the time you're not out there leveling, the time that you're not dropping, additional gear that you might want. Your build's not getting better. You're not getting through the game faster. And if you do that too much, you can actually start feeling like the game is just slow. And that no momentum, that no feeling of progress is what usually kills people in the end game, where they just don't finish. And they're like, oh, okay, I'll just go do something else. I wanted that level 100, but it's not worth it. If we can do this, if we're following everything that's here before, we just don't want to eat up all that time that we just saved by spending an endless amount of time in town. So for the most part, if we're following everything in this guide so far, then what we're going to do is that we're not actually going to do anything in town. We're just going to hit our town. Like say we finish the game, then we're in the bubble. We're just going to hit the town portal, and we're going to go to the closest town. As soon as we come out, We are going to open up our bag and we're going to go down here with the sigils that we set aside, and we're just going to load the next one. So we are in and out in a flash. We're doing that. We're hitting tab to get the map and then just porting right to it. We are saving a considerable amount of time versus most people coming in. They're going to walk over, they're going to go to their stash, whatever else it is. Now, let's say that we are following that and you've done a handful of runs and now your bag is starting to get really full. What do you do then? Because for the most part, we can probably get at least 3 runs in if we're following what's before this, before we fill up our bag, before we need to go to the stash at all. But if we finally have a need for that, what you're going to want to do, same thing. You ended the level, you're in the bubble for the end of the Nightmare Dungeon. And then you're just going to hit tab and you're going to go over to the Tree of Whispers. So then you click in there. I mean, whatever your portal is, depending on if you're on a PC. We're actually going to, why don't we jump over there? And so what makes this town so great as a stop point is the proximity of the number one thing that you want to do. And the only thing you want to do is to go to your stash. We're not going to talk to anybody else. This is not where we're sorting and sifting and deciding what's best. We're going to go to our stash. We're going to go to our open tab. We're going to clear everything out of our bag. We're not sorting. We're not deciding. We're not selling. We're not doing anything. And then we are going to go to consumables and we are going to close the stash. Then we're going to consumables. And guess what? We're going to load our next sigil. So you see that either way, whatever you have to do, because you're just focused on getting through the Nightmare Dungeons quicker, you are going to move pretty fast and you're spending almost no time in town. And now say that you're still in that place where your gear is not on spec. You still don't have that end game gear. You still have some spots that really need some help. What we're going to do to kind of split the difference, you obviously, if you're just looking at leveling, we could run leveling Nightmare Dungeons and then we can go run gear Nightmare Dungeons using most of the techniques. But I like to split the difference a little bit because I like feeling like I'm moving through and all the things that matter in my game. And so what I'll do is I should come in and I'll just choose what is my weakest piece right now? What needs to be replaced? So let's say that we were talking about boots. We talked about movement speed earlier. So imagine your boots don't have a movement speed and you need that to run the Nightmare Dungeons faster. This may be a piece I want to replace sooner than later. And so what I'll do is the only ancestral yellows that I will pick up, or sacreds if you're in World Tier 3, are going to be the ones that are for boots. So that way I'm still getting a collection of boots to check out and see if some of them have what I need. So splitting this difference will still keep the amount of time you're spending in each Nightmare Dungeons, the amount of time you're spending in town, significantly down, but you're still allowing you to pick up all those boots. And even that, I wouldn't even be sorting the boots while I'm running the Nightmare Dungeons. Again, I'd be throwing it in my stash, and when the stash is full or when I'm done with my Nightmare Dungeons, then I'll go look and see if I have any boots that are worth a damn. If you want to make sure you're avoiding some of the worst time traps in Diablo 4, make sure you catch this video where I go through not only the time traps, but how to sidestep them, how to make sure they're not wasting hours and hours of your time.